Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about mistakes. We all make mistakes in life. I sometimes make mistakes when I'm really tired. I sometimes make mistakes when I'm not thinking clearly. Sometimes when I have a really long day and I'm exhausted at the end of the day. Sometimes I make mistakes. This is not going to be a lesson about mistakes people make when speaking English, though. This is going to be a lesson about mistakes that people make as they go through their day, the typical mistakes that you might make in the same situations that I just mentioned. When you're tired, when you're exhausted, when you're overworked, you tend to make more mistakes. So I'm eager to do this English lesson with you, and I think you'll learn a lot of new words and phrases that you could use to talk about the mistakes you make or the mistakes that you see other people make. So welcome to this English lesson about mistakes. So first of all, when we talk about mistakes, we almost always use the phrase to make a mistake. When you're writing a test, maybe you're writing an English test, sometimes you make a mistake. Sometimes when you're talking in the past tense, you'll say, oh, yesterday I made a mistake. So generally, when we talk about mistakes, we use the verb to make. I don't make a lot of mistakes, but I usually double check everything I do, especially my videos. I always check for mistakes because if I make a mistake in an English lesson and put it on YouTube, that's a bad thing. Teachers shouldn't make mistakes. But generally, this is the phrasing we would use. Not all the time, as you'll see as we go through the lesson. So, a common mistake when people are going somewhere is to make a wrong turn. But we also use the verb take here. You can take a wrong turn. You could say something like, oh, sorry I'm late, but I took a wrong turn, or I made a wrong turn. I had directions on how to get here, but for some reason I took a wrong turn or I made a wrong turn. When you do this when you're driving, it means you get lost, but sometimes you just make a mistake. You make a wrong turn. This doesn't happen as much as it used to, because a lot of people now use GPS. GPS is on your phone and it lets you find a place a lot easier. But common mistake is to make a wrong turn or take a wrong turn. And then this is not how you spell error. I was worried that if I put a word on the screen that was a spelling mistake, people would think or they would misinterpret it, but that is intentionally wrong. Error is spelled E-R-R-O-R. But a spelling mistake is when you spell a word wrong. When I was a kid in school, we would have spelling tests, and I would make some spelling mistakes when I took my spelling test. When you take an English test, quite often you will make spelling mistakes when you write the test, and then the teacher will take points off. You will lose points for making a spelling mistake. Mistaken identity. So this is the formal term for when the police or someone else thinks you're someone who you aren't. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Let me re-explain. My younger brother, has the same voice as me, and my younger brother looks a lot like me. So sometimes people think he's me, or they think I'm him. And it's kind of like a funny case of mistaken identity. Luckily, my brother is not a criminal. My brother is an upstanding citizen, so I've never had the police come here looking for my brother and because of a case of mistaken identity, think that I was him. But that's not my brother, by the way. That's actually me. But when the police or the government or someone official thinks you're someone else, we would call it mistaken identity. When I do it in the classroom or just in life, we usually say it's calling someone the wrong name. Sometimes you call someone the wrong name. In class, when students raise their hand to answer a question, I always make sure I use their name. I have called people the wrong name before. As a teacher, it's not very nice. And I know someone was mentioning earlier in the chat that they called someone by the wrong name. And that's just not a nice mistake to make for the other person. And it's embarrassing for you as well. So there's a phrase in English to double book yourself. Now, this is a mistake that people make sometimes where they agree to do something on a certain day and time, and then they agree to do something else on that day and time. And then when that day arrives, they realize that they double booked themselves. When you double book yourself, it means you plan to do two things during the same time on the same day, and it's a mistake. You thought that you had nothing going on that day, but you put two things at 11 a.m. on April 30th, and now on the day, you realize that you double booked yourself. Never a good thing to double book yourself. It can result in frantically calling someone to say you can't make an appointment because you have two appointments to go to. Losing track of time. This happens to me sometimes, but I'm usually fairly good with time. But when you lose track of time, when you forget what time it is, especially when you need to be somewhere, this is a mistake. I know there are some people I work with who very easily lose track of time, and they come to meetings late, or they just, I don't want to say too much, but some people are very timely, and some people lose track of time very easily. When you lose track of time, again, it means you just forget what time it is. So let's say you needed to be at your sister's house for dinner at 6 o'clock. And then all of a sudden you realize that it's 5 after 6. We would say that you lost track of time. You made a mistake and you lost track of time. So as I was making this lesson, I thought sleeping in isn't really a mistake. Sleeping in is just something that sometimes you choose to do, sometimes you do by accident. But forgetting to set your alarm the night before, I would consider a mistake. When you go to bed, if you need to get up at 6 or 6:30 or 7, you want to make sure that you set your alarm. Forgetting to set your alarm will mean that you will probably be late for something the next day. So for me, every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I set my alarm. On Friday night and Saturday night, I don't. But if I was to forget to set my alarm during those days, then I would probably be late for work. That would not be a good thing. So forgetting to set your alarm is another a common mistake that some people make. I don't make it very often. It's nice though, because Jen and I both set alarms, so that makes it a little easier. Burning something. So when you bake something or when you cook something, you need to bake or cook it for a certain amount of time. And sometimes if you forget to set a timer, or if you just forget about it, maybe you lose track of time, you might burn something. Okay, so maybe you make some cookies and you put them in the oven and you need to set the timer for 12 minutes and you don't. And then all of a sudden you smell something burning. You run to the kitchen and then you realize that you burnt something. So burning something is another thing, another mistake that people sometimes make. They lose track of time when they're cooking something, and then it gets burnt or overcooked. Forgetting to lock something. So there are a number of things in life that you want to lock. When you go out, you lock your house. When you go to the grocery store, if you drive there, you lock your car. And sometimes you forget to lock something. It's not always a mistake, but it can be very, very annoying to come out of the grocery store and realize you left your car unlocked and maybe somebody stole something from your car. So forgetting to lock something is another common mistake people make. They forget to lock their house. Maybe they go on a vacation and when they get to their destination, they realize they forgot to lock their house or they forgot to lock their apartment. So another common mistake that people make is forgetting to lock something. Now, there's also the mistake of locking your keys in your car. Now, this actually happened recently to someone in my family. I won't say who. It's not nice to say. But sometimes you start your vehicle in a cold climate like Canada. You often start your vehicle 3 or 4 minutes before you go somewhere. And when you do that, you can accidentally lock your car. And then your car is running with the keys in it and you can't get in. Sometimes people lock their keys in their car at other times of year. I know we had it once where when our kids were really little, We let our one son play with the keys. So once I put him in his car seat in the car, and then I gave him my keys to play with, and I closed the door, and he I think he was only 3. He locked the vehicle, and I didn't have the other set of keys. Jen was gone with her keys. So sometimes you lock your keys in your car. Everything ended okay though. Jen came home with the keys. Leaving something on top of your car. So one time I was driving and I was in a parking lot and a car was coming towards me, and the person had a cup of coffee or a cup of Coke or something on top of their car. And so I waved to them, like I was like, stop. And then they hit their brakes, but then it just fell and spilled all over the hood of their car. I remember a couple of my kids laughing a bit, but that was a mistake that person made. They came to their car. They probably were carrying a lot of stuff, so they put their coffee on the car, unlocked their car, forgot about the coffee, and then drove away with it. Drinking or biting something hot. So sometimes you burn your tongue. Sometimes you get a cup of tea, and the tea is really hot. This tea isn't, by the way. And you take a sip, and then you're like, I burned my tongue. It doesn't happen as much with hot food, but it can. I know sometimes when I bite into pizza, the sauce on the pizza is still really, really hot, and sometimes I burn my tongue. So another mistake that people make sometimes is to take a sip or drink something that's too hot, or biting food that's too hot, and then they burn their tongue. And sometimes you bite your tongue. When you chew food, I don't know why this happens, but about once a year or so, I'm eating and I'm chewing, and then I accidentally bite my tongue. Sometimes I bite my tongue really hard and it hurts. But this is a mistake that doesn't happen very often, but I'm sure you bite your tongue once every few years. Maybe you're eating really fast. Maybe you're really hungry, so you're eating really fast. And then you accidentally bite your tongue. Never a good feeling, especially if you bite your tongue really hard. It's never a good feeling. And then you spend the rest of the day thinking, why did I do that? Why did I make that mistake? Wearing your shirt inside out. Now, this can happen with other articles of clothing, but sometimes people accidentally wear their shirt inside out. So it's not necessarily a mistake. It's more like a bit of forgetfulness. But I guess you could say that he made a mistake yesterday. He wore his shirt inside out the whole day. You can tell this shirt is inside out because the writing that's usually on the back of the shirt is usually inside. But this person is wearing the shirt inside out, so you can see the writing on the outside of the shirt. So another mistake that people sometimes make is they wear a shirt inside out. I have never done this when I go to work, because the shirts I have, I would be able to tell if they're inside out. But I have done this around the house. Usually when you put a t-shirt on, sometimes it's easy to accidentally wear it inside out. This is something that can only happen one way in Canada, and that's when you put gas in a diesel vehicle. And then the phrase "or vice versa" means the reverse, putting diesel in a gas vehicle. So we have different names, but in Canada we have gas and we have diesel, gasoline and diesel. In other English-speaking countries, it might be petrol, it might be fuel, but here in Canada we say gas and diesel. A gas vehicle cannot use diesel, and a diesel vehicle cannot use gas. So in Canada, the nozzles are actually different sizes. So you can accidentally put gas in a diesel vehicle, but you can't actually get the diesel nozzle in a gas vehicle. So at least that's the case. And you might think that this never happens. Who would make this mistake? But I've actually heard in my life twice where I know someone has put gas in a diesel vehicle, and it's not good. the engine stops running, there's major problems and huge repair costs. So always put the right fuel in your vehicle. Put gas in a gas vehicle and diesel in a diesel vehicle. Driving into the curb. I couldn't find a good picture of this. By the way, I'm not sure if the dog's actually driving the car. But sometimes when I pull into a parking space, I drive too far forward and the front of my vehicle scrapes against the curb. Have you ever done that? Where you drive into a parking spot and then there's a curb and you just hear crunch because you drove too far forward. This is probably a bad example of this, but definitely when you drive into a parking lot and when you drive into a curb, that is not a nice mistake. And you're immediately aware you made a mistake by the sound your car makes scraping against the curb. Leaving something on. So this is similar, I guess, to, well, not burning something, but this is like if you go somewhere, sometimes when Jen and I are driving, we'll say, oh, did you turn the oven off? Or did you turn the stove off? Like maybe you fry some eggs on the stove and then you forget to turn it off. A long time ago when Jen used a curling iron more, sometimes we'd be driving and Jen would say, oh, I think I left the curling iron on. So when you leave something on, it means it's, you didn't turn it off. So you forgot to turn off the stove. You forgot to turn off the oven. You forgot to turn off the curling iron. These are really bad mistakes because if you leave something on like a stove or a curling iron, you could accidentally start a fire in your house. That would not be a good thing. Forgetting to water a houseplant. I don't know why. I think I'm laughing because this is something I have done a lot. I am not good at taking care of plants. When I buy houseplants, I forget to water them. When you forget to water a houseplant, when you make this mistake, they die. That's just how it works. If you buy a houseplant and you put it in your window and you water it once, and then a couple months later, you look at it and you realize that you haven't watered it, that is a bad mistake because it will look like this. It will have died. So definitely forgetting to water a houseplant is a mistake. That has a sad result if you make that mistake, for sure. Forgetting to call someone on their birthday. So when you have a birthday, it's nice if people give you a phone call. It's nicer if they visit, but generally it's nice to get a phone call. It's nice when on my birthday, my mom calls me. But sometimes you forget to call someone on their birthday. Forgetting to call someone on their birthday is not a very nice mistake to make. My mom's birthday is coming up in a few months. I will absolutely phone her on her birthday. In fact, I will most likely go see her. But forgetting to call my mom on her birthday would be a really bad mistake. People like it when you call them on their birthday. It's just a nice feeling when someone calls and says happy birthday to you. Forgetting to put on sunscreen. So if you are a person that tans and burns, and not everyone does, but if you are someone with fair skin, who if you go out in the sun for too long without sunscreen on or suntan lotion, you burn. Forgetting to put on sunscreen is a huge mistake. Jen and I on the farm regularly wear sunscreen. When you work outside for a number of hours on our farm, and when you are of my complexion, the sun is dangerous. So if I forget to put on sunscreen, I look like this, and it hurts. A sunburn is not a nice thing to have. And it's one of the worst mistakes, forgetting to put on sunscreen. It's such a simple thing. It takes like 1 minute to put sunscreen on. And if you forget, and then a few hours go by, then you're like, oh, this really hurts. The worst is when you get a sunburn on your ears or on your nose. For me, that's what hurts the most. But definitely forgetting to put on sunscreen is a mistake that you don't want to make if you're someone who burns easily. texting the wrong person. We talked about this a couple months ago. I think I did a lesson on when things go wrong or something like that. But certainly, especially if you're texting something mean and then you're like, I don't like you, send. And then you realize that you made a mistake, that you sent it to the wrong person. So let's say there was someone who I didn't like and I was texting them, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. You're mean. That's not a very nice text. And then if I hit send and then realized I sent it to my mom, that would be a bad mistake. I would quickly call my mom and say, that wasn't meant for you. Sorry. But texting the wrong person, it's an easy thing to do in the world we currently live in. It's very easy to make a mistake when you're quickly sending messages to people. But definitely not a good mistake to make when you text the wrong person. Comparing yourself to others. So we live in a world where it's very easy to think that other people have a nicer life than you do. It's very easy to compare yourself to others. When you compare yourself to others, you say things like, oh, my brother has a nicer car. My cousin has more money than me. And when you see everyone putting pictures on Instagram, you see the good parts of their life and you can start to compare yourself to others. This is a mistake. You should always be happy with yourself. Sometimes when you're learning English, you do this as well. You compare how someone else is doing learning English. Oh, he's learning English faster than me. He knows more words than me. But you should definitely avoid comparing yourself to others. It's just, it will just make you unhappy. Just compare yourself to yourself. That's what I would do. So I put this one in here to be funny. There's a mistake that people make when they put toilet paper on the toilet paper roll holder. Now, this might not be as funny for you. This might be more of a North American joke, but there are two ways that you can put a roll of toilet paper on the wall. One way, the toilet paper hangs close to the wall, and the other way, the toilet paper hangs far away. And people actually argue about this sometimes. For me, the far way, with the toilet paper hanging away from the wall, that's the proper way. And if you put it this way, you've made a mistake. So I'm not sure when you go to the bathroom how you hang your toilet paper, but certainly in North America, people sometimes argue about which is the right way and which is a mistake. So I thought that would be a funny slide to put in here. Leaving food out. So when you come home from the grocery store, if you buy something like cookies, you can leave the cookies on the counter. If you buy something like meat, though, it needs to go into the refrigerator, or it needs to go into the freezer, or you need to cook it right away. But sometimes when you get home from the grocery store, you're really busy and you might leave food out by accident. When you do this with something like meat, the meat goes bad. That's not a good mistake to make. When you leave food out and the food goes bad, it's a waste of money because now you have to buy it again. Sometimes we have meat that's frozen, and we'll take it out and put it on the counter to thaw it, and then we'll forget about it. It doesn't happen very often, but leaving food out is certainly another kind of mistake that people do make. So this one you might have a different opinion on than me. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert when it comes to exercising. Some people think that not stretching before exercising is a mistake, that you should stretch before you exercise. Other people think, no, you should exercise and then you should stretch after you exercise. So it's kind of like the toilet paper thing again. Some people think it's a mistake to not stretch before exercising. Some people think it's a mistake to not stretch after exercising. Saying yes too often. I think we all like to be nice people. And at work or in our families, people often ask us to do things. And sometimes we say yes too often and then we become too busy. So when you have an opportunity to volunteer to do something, it's nice to say yes, but you shouldn't say yes too often. If you say yes too often, you'll be too busy and you will not get enough sleep. Maybe you'll start to eat lots of fast food because you're too busy. So make sure that you say yes, but not too often. It's a mistake to not take care of yourself. Not taking care of yourself means that you don't get enough sleep, you don't eat healthy food, you don't exercise. When you take care of yourself, you make sure that you are healthy, both physically and mentally. So not taking care of yourself is definitely a mistake. Having a simple password. This is not my password. My password is not 1234, but it would be a mistake if you created an email account and if you made your password 12345678. I don't think they even let you do that anymore. Or maybe your password is password, or your password is your last name. Having a simple password is a mistake. Make sure that if you create a password, you create a really, really good password. Uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, whatever you need to do, make sure your password is secure, because having a simple password is a mistake. Drinking too much. Now, I'm talking here about alcoholic beverages. I'm talking about people going out at night and having more than 1 or 2 beers or 3 beers, whatever your limit is. We use the word mistake to talk about things we've done that were a bad idea. So I might say something like this. Oh, I stayed out late last night. That was a mistake. Or I drank too much beer last night. That was a mistake. So we often describe behavior, if it affects us negatively the next day, we describe it as a mistake. Like, oh, I drove for 8 hours yesterday. That was a mistake. I should have taken a break. Or I went for a run without stretching. That was a mistake. So bad behavior or behavior that's bad for us, we sometimes say that was a mistake. So again, staying up too late, you can say, oh, I stayed up till midnight last night. That was a mistake. Whenever you describe behavior that has a negative effect right now, like I actually went to bed too late 2 nights ago, and that was a mistake because I'm still feeling a little bit tired today. This man looks like he is staying up late to do some work. Probably would have been a better idea to go to bed and get up early, maybe. But staying up too late can definitely be a mistake. Not creating a study routine. This one, I made this one specifically for all of you who are learning English. I am a firm believer that you should have a routine. You should have a weekly schedule for studying English. Not creating a study routine, I think, makes it a little easier maybe to learn English because you just do it whenever you feel like. But if you really, really, really want to make progress, you should create a study routine. So I think it's a mistake to not create a study routine. I think everyone should create study routines if they are learning English.